Hello and welcome back to the Great Ace Attorney Chronicles. My name is Wayne Supernova. In the last part of this fantastic final case, we went through the first portion of the trial before a recess was gotten to, and then we had to find Judge Jigoku. And in order to do that, we called on Mr. Herlock Sholmes and his trusty assistant, Professor Miko Toba. And that's exactly what they did. They found Judge Jigoku trying to escape the country for some reason. And now we are back in court after we have found the witness. I don't know whether they're just going to skip the amount of time in between it's going to be taking Judge Jigoku from the ship back to the courtroom, but we'll see. I am ready to destroy my voice once again. Kazuma Asogi, I know you, and I know you wouldn't lie, but still, there's no doubt that you're holding something back. You know more than you're saying. I forgot about that. During the past 30 minutes while this court was adjourned, all possible efforts were expended. But sadly, Mr. Jigoku's whereabouts could not be ascertained. We must accept the unfortunate conclusion that the Reaper has already done the deed. Are we so sure about that? There's no sense in wasting any more of the court's time. The prosecution calls for an immediate verdict. No, the trial cannot end now. You're a Japanese man, Ryunosuke. You should know when to lay down your sword. And you should know never to presume when the battle is won. The court has already been presented with all the evidence and heard all relevant testimony. And there can only be one conclusion, that the accused is guilty. All relevant testimony? Far from it. There's still a crucial witness, from whom the court is yet to hear a single word of testimony. In that case, call your witness to the stand at once, counsel. Yes, my lord. Tomorrow, if possible. The witness is already on his way and scheduled to arrive tomorrow. What on earth is this crucial witness? Who on earth is this crucial witness? Seishiro Jigoku. The very man allegedly murdered by the Reaper. Judge Jigoku? You found him? But the investigations of every policing resource in the capital suggest that Jigoku is already dead. How in the name of God did you find the man? He was located in France during the recess, at the port of Dunkirk. Thanks to one of Mr. Herlock Sholmes' famous deductions. Herlock Sholmes? Inspector Gregson almost certainly met with Mr. Jigoku on the night of his death, because along with Prosecutor Asogi, Gregson was on a mission to assassinate the man. Which means that Seishiro Jigoku is the sole witness who can clarify exactly what happened aboard the SS Grouse on the 31st of October. Just going through the motions. Well, it would appear that it's too soon to move to adjudication at this point. Something tells me that this isn't going to be it, though. The prosecution concurs. The court must hear Mr. Jigoku's testimony. No judgment should be passed until all testimony has been considered. Oops. In that case, I hereby call the end of today's proceedings. Court will reconvene at the same hour tomorrow. No objections from either side? No, my lord. No objections, my lord. We live to fight another day by the skin of our teeth. Seems we do. It seems we do. And, of course, in typical fashion, I end the episode a little bit too early. Let us save. I'm interested to see what this break is going to do, though. The unexpected halt of proceedings sent a clamor around the courtroom, but outside the Bailey, where Londoners knew nothing of the secret trial within, it was a typical still night. Then, at a little past 8 o'clock that evening, Mr. Sholmes and his partner returned to Baker Street. Wow, that's a feast. Is that like a pot pie? Or just a normal pie, really. And then a large turkey. We have returned, my dear fellows. Welcome back to Britain, and thank you for your timely help. Think nothing of it. I believe you've had an even more wearing day than Mikotoba and I know. You could say that. We were on the brink of defeat in court earlier. So this prosecutor Asogi had you on the ropes, did he? And he's your best friend, you say? Well, he's not really the man I knew in Japan anymore. Kazuma's changed. Oh, Mr. Naruhodo. I mean, it's incredible. To think that he'd even entertain the idea of acting as the Reaper's assassin. Well, nevertheless, you must introduce me. After all, I've only ever met the young man as a corpse. When all this started, almost a year ago now. Mr. Sholmes still hasn't told us the truth about what really happened back then. About the motivation for what he himself described as a great detective's lie. Now then, I must say, it's really quite a journey all the way to France. Well, it is another country, Mr. Sholmes. So, what news of Judge Jigoku? We took him to Scotland Yard. The investigating detectives there have a lot of questions for the man. Poor Professor Mikotoba. This must be quite a shock for him. Ah, yes. I picked this up at the telegraph office on our way home. What is it? Surely you haven't forgotten already. I put upon you for the matter only yesterday. You put upon me, Sholmes. I had to fill out your telegram to Japan and foot the bill as well. Oh, you've had a reply already? What was so urgent, though, Mr. Sholmes? Oh. Oh, boy. Never gets old. What was so urgent, though, Mr. Sholmes? Such matters can wait until later. I'm far too hungry for an involved conversation at present. Well, that's good news, because supper is ready, everyone. Ah, and what a feast it is. If I were none the wiser, I'd think that the trial were won already. Roast beef, kippers, stew, steak, and kidney pie, Yorkshire pudding. Tomorrow could be a very long day, so eat up! How the hell do you make all that at that age? Jesus Christ. I don't think even I could make all that at once. I'd probably pass out or collapse from exhaustion. In that case, I think I'll seat myself just here. This place appears to be the only one sent with a helping of pheasant as well. That's what it is. Oh, sorry, Hurley. Not there. Why ever not? Are we in set places this evening? Yes, and that place is for Susie's daddy. For me? That's right. I made it especially for you, Professor Mickey. Mickey? I see. Well, that's terribly kind of you. It's a shame, really. What do you mean? Well, for a brief moment, I believed it. That Susie and I were half-sisters, I mean. Oh. Iris, do you mean? Yes, I know now. I overheard yesterday.
I secretly listened into the conversation you had after I tricked you all into thinking I'd left.
What? Ooh, boy. This is going to be a heavy dinner, I think. The misunderstanding arose because of that autopsy report from 10 years ago. But actually, it turned out that neither Dr. Wilson nor Professor Mikotoba are Iris's father. Yes, about that, Iris. You know I
know. You can't tell me at the moment. Oh, Iris. The pheasant is by way of an apology. I'm sorry for eavesdropping.
Oh, no, that's quite alright. Then why don't I get any apologetic pheasant? So just who is Iris's father? I suppose that's not something we'll be finding out today. Oh, interesting. So then, let us dine, while our largely pheasantless plates are still piping hot. A fine idea, Sholmes. It all looks absolutely delicious.
Eat as much as you like. There are always seconds.
This could be our last chance to ask questions before tomorrow's trial, about that telegram from Japan and about Kazuma. I can't let this opportunity slip away. That's the position you take on the couch, Sholmes? Mr. Sholmes, what are you doing? Ah, he's in that mood. Surely it's abundantly clear that I wasn't brooding over Mikotoba's refusal to share his pheasant with me. Nevertheless, I felt the need to withdraw from the social circle for a while and look on with hungry eyes.
Sorry, Hurley, but I cooked that pheasant especially for Susie's daddy.
Even though I've played the role of father to you for far longer. Mr. Sholmes, could I discuss some things with you? Certainly, my dear fellow. I find myself quite in the mood for a spell of conversation. No doubt you're hungry to learn more of my deep love of game. I can probably contain my curiosity on that one. You needn't look at me in that fashion. In what fashion? It seems that before we discuss the pheasant, we have some rather unpheasant matters to discuss. I would say that's probably the case. So, what was in that telegram you received back from Japan then? Ah, this? I think my lucky stars had arrived in time. Record found as indicated. Duplicate follows. K. Asogi, A. Shin, T. Gregson, J. Wilson. What? Those 4 names? We've come across that exact same list before. Yeah, we did. What did you ask? Is the question. They came up in that unforgettable case last spring. Yeah, the one with Ashley. What appeared to be a simple case of aggravated murder turned out to be masking monumental intrigue. A plot that involved the sale of British governmental secrets to foreign states. In exposing the means by which those secrets were being leaked, we deciphered a fragment of a message. K. Asogi, A. Sheen, T. Gregson, J. Wilson. But we didn't find the names out until the case was over, and we never did get to the bottom of what they meant. All we knew was that the information had been sent by somebody in the British government to somebody in Japan. So, why are the names coming up again now?
Yes, where did the sender of your telegram discover them, Mr. Sholmes?
I have here the message that I wired yesterday. Allow me to read it to you.
Enter Judge Jigoku's office undetected and investigate telegram records. Expect to find communication from Britain dated 1 year ago. List of 4 names, needed by tomorrow. Naruhodo. I sent it to a detective I know who specializes in clandestine missions of this nature.
You asked Inspector Hosonaga to undertake such an onerous task for you?
Onerous. And in my name? I wonder what guise he opted for this time. My dear fellows, it was a matter of great urgency, you understand? Anyway, a list of names was found in Seishiro's office, as Sholmes predicted.
So you mean that mysterious collection of names that was sent from Britain to Japan was... It was sent to Judge Jigoku! He was the intended recipient!
I don't believe it.
But that doesn't answer the question of what the list of names actually signifies.
I did formulate a hypothesis about that. But without a shred of evidence, I couldn't possibly have shared it. Mr. Sholmes looks deadly serious for once.
So it's the list of 4 names. We don't know what's happened to A. Sheen. We think it may have been the woman who was found dead. That was the assassin, quote unquote. And Asogi was the other one, Kazuma. So Kazuma, A. Sheens, who we don't exactly know who they really are, John H. Wilson, and Gregson. It's a very interesting list. I think the way it's written is also interesting, but that might just be how they sent messages in Morse code back then, because it was a telegram, right? Maybe that's just the formula that they used back then. Record found as indicated, duplicate follows. Yeah, and it was sent by Hosonaga. That's very interesting. Maybe it's like a hit list? Because we already have at least 2 of those dead. And Asogi... Well, he wasn't dead, but... he was struck. And we thought that was an accident. But, maybe not. And then Asashin. If it was Giselle Brett, that girl, then they're already dead too. So that would mean that maybe Asogi was the last target? And the fact that it was sent from someone in the British government over to JIGOKU means that maybe JIGOKU was one of the people that they were using to, you know, commit the crimes and get rid of those 4 members. Though, for what reason, I'm not sure. Maybe it has something to do with the judiciary in Britain. Because I'm thinking, I'm really thinking that that our lovely Judge Stronhart over here is involved in some way. That tragedy we had to go through on the SS Buria, it was all for nothing. Kazuma wasn't dead at all. We were completely taken in by the lie you told us. Your great detective's lie. I took no pleasure in deceiving you. However, at the time, all that concerned me was preventing the young man's study tour from taking place, whatever the cost. What? I capitalized on the events that transpired to see that he was sent back to Japan.
His remains, you mean?
Precisely, Miss Susato. And then I made sure that somebody else was sent to Britain in his stead.
Oh my, you mean...
The arrangement between our two countries was already in place. One university student lawyer and one judicial assistant to be accommodated on a study tour. Speaking of that accommodation... Well, not the accommodation, but speaking of that study trip, it's almost as if... Because he had to get Mikotoba and Jigoku to sign off on it, right? That was like all the way back at the beginning. So Jigoku already had the list with that name on it. That could have been part of the plan as well. Sending him over to Japan. And Sholmes got in the way of that. It'll be interesting. In other words, by arranging for someone else to fill the place originally intended for Mr. Asogi, I would successfully prevent the man from arriving on our shores for several years at least. Wait, do you mean to say that it was all in aid of stopping Kazuma coming to Britain? That's why you... Think back, Mr. Naruhodo. Was there not somebody who quite casually urged you to continue on the voyage to England? Oh. Hosonaga. I don't remember his voice. The terms of this study tour were negotiated by the Department of Justice in both Great Britain and Japan. In the light of Mr. Asogi's unfortunate death, I'm afraid the study tour can no longer go ahead. My dear fellows, the majority of problems have an extremely simple solution, you know. All you require is one lawyer, and the study tour can continue, surely.
But there is no one else with the necessary qualifications, Mr. Sholmes. We know of no other lawyer.
The voyage to London still promises a good month of time. Ample opportunity, I would say, to find yourselves another suitable lawyer. So, you manipulated me? I've often remarked on the extraordinary lengths to which friendship will drive a man. I was quite sure that you would rise to the challenge for your late friend.
I don't believe it. But if it was all contrived... I mean... What happened was treated by the authorities as murder. A woman was mistakenly arrested as the perpetrator. What do you suppose became of her?
Naturally, I didn't allow the misapprehension to have any serious repercussions. I subsequently explained everything and assisted the unfortunate soul in finding the foreign refuge she sought. Oh, okay, so she's fine. I seem to remember Miss Susato and I had some rather strong words for her. Well, she was certainly not devoid of all guilt. She deserved every word, I'm sure. I wonder if she made it to America then. Maybe.
I'm afraid I simply cannot comprehend it. Why would you go to such lengths, Mr. Sholmes? Why were you so determined to stop Kazuma-sama from reaching Britain?
He must have known something back then. The truth is, 12 months ago, there was already a very tangible omen of the impending tragedy, you see.
Oh!
An omen that, at this very moment in time, is close at hand. An omen of all these tragic events that already existed a year ago is close at hand? We need to find out exactly what Mr. Sholmes knows before the game stops us. Well, we can't, unless it's something presented to him. There was no room for doubt with your instructions in this telegram, Mr. Sholmes. You were very clear that it was Judge Jigoku's office that should be searched, so you obviously knew that's where the list of names would be found.
K. Asogi, A. Sheen, T. Gregson, J. Wilson.
But we only learnt of those 4 names just over 6 months ago now, and only because they appeared as part of the top-secret government communications that were leaked. That's true, yes, but at the time you were unaware of the background. You see, those 4 names were wired to Japan. Around 6 months before that, approximately this time last year in fact, when you were both still in Japan. Ah. It really would be hypocrisy on my part to reprove others for intercepting state secrets. Because after all, I'm perpetually eavesdropping on communications between the British and Japanese governments. You're perpetually doing what? How? Never mind the details, but you should know. No secret is safe from Herlock Sholmes, when he has designs on knowing it.
Oh my, Mr. Sholmes! What a fabulous line!
Write that down, Iris, write that down! Now, 1 month after that list of 4 names was wired to the recipient JIGOKU in Japan, Dr. John H. Wilson was murdered. As soon as I learnt of the incident, a hypothesis rapidly took shape in my mind. As it turned out, I was partly correct, and partly mistaken. Nevertheless, it was the beginning of all the tragic events that were to follow.
Mr. Sholmes, please, tell us all you know. Tell us about these 4 names and the tragedy to which they're all somehow connected.
Oh boy, really getting into this now. As I said, when I learnt of Dr. Wilson's murder in Japan, my mind immediately turned to those 4 names, because, you see, there was someone else on the list who I believed to be recently deceased.
What? Who?
Sheen, as it was transcribed in Japanese script. In actual fact, Miss Asa Sheen. That was a familiar name to me. She was a professional killer, well known among London's unsavory classes. Oh, I see. But she had completely vanished from existence several months before John H. Wilson's murder. So I came to the logical conclusion that she had herself been killed. And accordingly, I became fearful for the lives of the remaining 2 persons on the list.
K. Asogi and T. Gregson.
Owing to our proximity, I decided to take measures to protect Gregson myself. But I determined it would be safest if Yon Asogi were to stay away from Britain. So that's why you went to such lengths to prevent his study tour from going ahead. Exactly.
So, you already knew who Kazuma-sama was, Mr. Sholmes?
Oh yes. Sholmes and I have exchanged correspondence for years. I'd recounted many tales about Asogi to him in my letters, and the news of Dr. Wilson's death, of course.
So, Dr. Wilson is dead then? I didn't know.
Oh, Iris.
I know he wasn't my daddy, but still, that's very sad. I'm so sorry, Iris. We knew the significance of the name, obviously, but we just couldn't bring ourselves to tell you. No.
But what you just told us, Mr. Sholmes, doesn't completely tie in with the facts. There's one big hole in your hypothesis.
A big hole, Mr. Naruhodo?
Ah, yes. You mean about Asa Sheen, I presume?
Oh, of course!
Exactly. She wasn't killed, was she? She was in Japan, posing as a visiting student under the assumed name of Giselle Brett. I'm glad you're keeping up, my dear fellow. But I only became aware of that fact 2 days ago, in the foyer of the Great Waterloo Hotel.
Ah!
And upon hearing that startling revelation, The hypothesis that I'd formed surrounding those 4 names was completely turned topsy.
What? Topsy? Topsy hypothesis? What do you mean when you say your hypothesis was turned topsy, Mr. Sholmes? I had believed all 4 names on the list to be the names of victims. However, I was mistaken.
Very much so. Asashin was a killer. So this telegram is a list of both victims and killers, is it?
Indeed, and it would seem that Miss Sheen was dispatched from Britain with the sole intention of dispatching Dr. Wilson. Her visiting student status being merely a front.
Ah!
Which would of course explain why no motive could be determined for her actions.
So the real reason Dr. Wilson was killed by Asashin is because he was the target of an assassination. And forearmed with that knowledge, fresh consideration of this telegram puts the list in a very different perspective.
What do you mean?
Well, does it not strike you? There is another among the 4, who subsequently became a visiting student.
Wait, you mean...
But of course, a name you know only too well.
You mean... Kazuma? Oh!
He did say in court earlier today. Yes, on 31st of October, I accompanied Inspector Gregson to Dunkirk in order to carry out a mission.
And the mission was?
The assassination of the Mark. Young Mr. Asogi accepted that mission a year ago now.
Surely not.
In conclusion, this document is a contract of sorts. An international agreement, one might say, detailing an assassin exchange.
An assassin exchange? How could Kazuma possibly have gotten involved in something like that?
Well, if that's what it really is, things are going to get interesting, because that means that his target wasn't JIGOKU, it was Gregson all along, right? He wasn't lying there when he said the assassination of the Mark. He also wasn't lying when he said the only thing that I could think of in my head when I was lost and, you know, I didn't know what I was doing. When he was, what the hell's the word called? He didn't have any of his memories, pretty much. I don't know why, but my brain shuts off when I record, so I don't remember words. But anyway, when he was in that state, he said that the only thing I could think of in my mind was that I had to get to Britain somehow, right? Yep. That's why, if this is true. Let's assume that we have 2 parties, each wishing to dispose of a distinct individual. Those 2 parties then make a contract to swap their respective assassination targets. That would then be an assassin exchange.
So to begin with, the British assassin is dispatched as a visiting student to Japan, where she kills her target. And then the Japanese assassin is dispatched as a visiting student to Britain in order to eliminate his target. It certainly does sound like an exchange.
But what on earth is the point?
Don't forget, Naruhodo, that the British assassin at least escaped conviction, thanks to diplomatic immunity afforded by consular jurisdiction.
Oh, yes.
Such jurisdiction could be null and void under the terms of the new treaty between our 2 countries. Should be null and void. So the fact that it was brought into play suggests intervention at the very highest levels.
Yeah, as if the person who sent the assassin exchange information is someone at the very highest level in the British government, right? The highest levels?
Yeah, I think we know who that is. These murders were two sides of the same coin, linked not by a common motive, but by contractual agreement. As such, they appeared utterly unrelated, yet in truth the assassins were complicit in one singular devilish scheme. That disassociation and the safeguard of diplomatic immunity were, I believe, the motivation behind this plot.
But wait a minute, Sholmes. If this telegram really is describing the exchange of assassins as you're suggesting, it would mean that the Japanese killer's target was never Seishiro Jigoku at all. It would mean Asogi's target was actually Inspector Gregson.
What? Kazuma was here for Gregson? So Judge Jigoku wasn't actually the mark? But yeah, we figured that out.
Yes, that's exactly what it would mean.
I hold myself personally responsible for failing to keep the inspector safe.
Mr. Sholmes.
I told him of my fears and employed him to seek a transfer to an overseas position. Obviously, with the pickpocket in tow. Yes, Gina. Come to think of it, Inspector Gregson did mention that to us at the Great Exhibition, that he'd be transferring to the Paris police and taking Gina with him. But without informing me, he engaged in one last assignment, it seems. And sadly, it turned out to be his very last. This is too much to take in. Interesting.
All right, everyone, that's quite enough of all that serious talk for one day. Isn't it, Hurley? I mean, look at the time.
Ah, quite right, Iris. We must conclude our preparations for tomorrow. What preparations?
Well, I think I shall make my way back to my hotel room now. This has certainly been a night to remember.
It is a little bit sad, though. I mean, I like the idea of you being my daddy. Because then Susie would have been my big sister.
I'm sorry, Iris.
Adopt.
I know, Iris. I was thinking quite the same thing. Were you? But if somebody like me would be worthy, I would be delighted to become your sister. What? Really? Oh yes, without question. So, you'll teach me all the ways you know how to throw Runo to the floor?
Okay, no, we're getting...
Yes, of course. It would be my pleasure.
You didn't have to agree quite so readily.
Oh, but wait a minute. If Susie's going to be my big sister, you could be my big brother if you want, Runo.
Huh? I mean, yes, of course. If you'll have me, I'll gladly be your brother. Well done, Iris. We must always be mindful of feelings. I've raised you so well. Because being sensitive is your strong suit, naturally. Lovely little bit of levity there.
Right, I'm going to work extra hard for tomorrow now, because it's for my big brother and sister.
What is all this talk about preparing for tomorrow? Preparing what?
Hee hee. You'll just have to wait and see.
Oh, it's one of those. Good luck in court tomorrow. I'm expecting a sterling performance. I'll do my very best, of course. Wow, it feels like this break has taken way longer than it actually has. So the overnight break in the trial's proceedings became a crucial turning point, exposing new truths whilst posing new conundrums. That list of 4 names on the telegram in Judge Jigoku's office, and the extraordinary assassination plot in which my best friend had somehow been involved. I felt as though I had been plunged into an even greater darkness all of a sudden. But at the same time, I felt sure I would see the light again soon. Don't pose for a family fucking photograph right before the final portion of the case. I'm expecting one of you to die now, because I was lucky enough to have the most wonderful family in the world standing steadfastly behind me. Fantastic. Another to be continued in the same episode. Yeah, what a bombshell. The truth of the list. Well, what we believe to be the truth of the list, but, I mean, they haven't really given us any reason to doubt it quite yet. So, we shall see.
Back again.
Before we begin today, I have a brief announcement. As with the closed trial 10 years ago, some astonishing facts have come to light in these proceedings. The revelation that the well-known Reaper is actually an organization illegally executing its own brand of justice, and the discovery that a respected yard inspector was at its heart until he himself perished in an assassination plot. Well, I say to all members of the judiciary here present at this occasion, that we will stop at nothing to uncover the whole truth behind these disturbing findings.
Yeah, me neither, buddy. Wonder if you'll be standing in the way.
Counsels, you will undertake this trial with the resolve to pursue the truth to the bitter end.
Resolve. Yes, that's my intention. Also the subtitle of the game.
My lord, if I may inquire, the defendant may speak. On what grounds is Kazuma Asogi permitted to continue in his role as prosecutor? He has admitted to colluding with the victim in a plot to assassinate an innocent man. He shouldn't be enjoying the privilege of freedom, let alone be leading as the prosecution.
I submitted a written petition to Lord Strongheart, requesting that judgment of my transgressions be delayed by 1 day.
You did what?
In today's proceedings, I intend to expose everything. My whole life for the last 10 years has all been leading up to this 1 day. Just digging yourself a bigger hole there with that statement, huh? Kazuma. Whatever the outcome of this trial, I give my word that I will accept whatever punishment is deemed appropriate, however severe. And I suggest you prepare yourself for the same, Reaper. So, you gotta think, right? You gotta think motivations at this point. If we think that Kazuma is the one who killed Gregson, why? Why would he accept an assassination plot to come all the way over here to Britain under the guise of a student just to kill Gregson? What would be the point? Why does he have the resolve to go through with something like that? I think it's because he probably believes that Gregson, and therefore the Reaper, was one of the people who was responsible in killing his father. And there's more to it that we don't quite know yet. I mean, that's the only motivation that I can think of for him, right? But why would he go after who we perceive to be the brains of the operation instead of the one who was actually committing the assassinations, the true killer, right? Asa Shin, we thought might have been the other one, but that's not the case. Because, I mean, she's dead. She was Giselle Brett. So who else would have been acting as the right-hand man? Well, the assassin alongside Gregson. Or are we mistaken on that front altogether? We shall have to see. Kazuma is bristling with hostility today. I get the distinct impression we're heading into very dangerous territory.
Is that really even Kazuma-sama standing before us?
As an extreme exception to normal practices, I have granted this prosecutor's request, because I asked him to fucking kill Gregson at the beginning. The defense finds this acceptable, I presume. Yes, my lord. In that case, in the name of Her Majesty the Queen, I hereby declare this court to be in session again. We resume the closed hearing of Barak van Zeeks. The defense is ready, my lord. The prosecution is more than ready. Very well then. This preamble has taken long enough. Prosecutor Asogi, begin. As you wish, my lord. The prosecution calls the first witness to the stand. Bring Seishiro Jigoku into the courtroom. At last, then, we've reached the final battle. He's putting literally everything on the line now in order to get the truth. Come on, Ryunosuke. It's time for that steely resolve, because this is going to test it to the limit.
Push it to the limit! The limit!
Witness, state your name and occupation for the court. Ha! So it was you who issued this, was it? Your subpoena? I did what was necessary. Ha 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 ha! Well, look what the young man has become. I didn't think I'd see the day when you'd take that tone with me, I must say. The witness will ensure his responses are pertinent to the questions asked. My name is Seishiro Jigoku, a Supreme Court judge from the Empire of Japan. 16 years ago, this man came to London as a visiting student. 6 years later, he returned to Japan. As well as presiding over the Supreme Court, he is also currently Japan's Minister of Foreign Affairs. I am of course fully aware of Mr. JIGOKU and his preeminent roles. I invited him personally to the International Forensic Science Symposium as a representative of his country. I hear he also played a key role in the conclusion of the Anglo-Japanese Treaty of Friendship and Navigation. Ha! It was a great honor to be involved in the negotiations. I put my all into that treaty.
Judge Jigoku, I must ask.
Well, I never. Fancied the young murdering student turning up here of all places.
You acquitted me yourself, and now I'm a practicing defense lawyer.
Yes, and full of self-importance like your friend across the courtroom, I see.
You came here to London by invitation of the International Forensic Science Symposium. But then, without informing anyone of your plans, you took flight to France.
Took flight? I'd have to object to that turn of phrase.
Then explain it yourself. What exactly were the circumstances?
Well, I was somewhat expecting this, and I'm sorry to say, I decline to comment.
What?
Leaving the country prematurely when I was an invited guest may be questionable etiquette. But my decision is unrelated to this case. I can't be bound to testify.
Unrelated, you say?
I appreciate that a respected police inspector has been killed, for which I offer my condolences. However, being an alien, I'd obviously never met the man, nor do I know the first thing about him. As such, I'm in no position to testify. It's as simple as that.
So you would run from all this?
I beg your pardon?
This case is more far-reaching than the murder of Inspector Gregson. It has ties to another murder, a case that was tried in Japan almost a year ago now.
A year ago in Japan? The murder of Dr. John H. Wilson, you mean?
That's right, and you, Judge Jigoku, are at the heart of both cases. The defense has evidence to prove it. Well, Ryunosuke, I see from the look in your eyes that you're resolved to carry this through to the very end, too. Let's see your evidence, then. What proof do you have that Seishiro Jigoku is involved in this case?
Okay. So the way I want to play this final portion, I think I want to go all in, right? I want to have the resolve that Ryunosuke does. So, I am not going to save my health until I am down to 2 lives. 2 because, you know, I don't want to have to look at the, I don't want to have to, like, go through the game over animation and all that stuff every single time that I lose. So, I will continue to present and fail until I get down to 2 marks left. And that is what I will do. Okay, so what proof do we have that Seishiro Jigoku is involved in not just this case, but the case from a few years ago, or from 1 year ago? I have to turn on my brain for a second here. I don't think it has anything to do with this. I can actually look at this. Interesting. I haven't checked the blade out in quite some time. Karuma, the great blade. It's such a thing of beauty, I want to gaze on it for hours. Yeah, we know about the tip that's missing. The tip of the great sword, broken. It's such a shame. It's been so meticulously cared for over the years. I can almost hear Karuma's sobs. Kazuma must have really taken a swing for that to happen. Yeah, a killing intent swing. And not only a killing intent swing, but one that he had been planning for quite some time. Huh, so there was an evacuation drill. All crew members are required to assemble on the main deck at 10. In order to review evacuation procedures, the drill will take 20 minutes. It's quite some time. I think it would have to be this, right? Found in Jigoku's office.
Take that!
Music stopped. This is a telegram detailing a communication sent between Britain and Japan approximately 1 year ago. The communication contained 4 names: Kei Asogi, A. Sheen, T. Gregson, and J. Wilson. You little... Ooh, that was a heavy... Where did you get that? In Tokyo. From your office, Judge Jigoku. What? How on earth did you... What's all this about? Why is my name on that list? This list of 4 names follows a certain pattern. T. Gregson and John Wilson are the names of the victims. Kei Asogi and A. Sheen are the names of assassins. No! A year ago in Tokyo, Dr. John H. Wilson's life was taken in a Western-style restaurant in the capital. The culprit was found to be a visiting student who went by the name of Giselle Brett. But her real name was Asa Shin, a professional killer sent on a mission to kill from Great Britain.
A. Shin and her victim, J. Wilson.
And the murder that just took place here in London was the counterpart to that crime. An assassin sent from Japan, also a visiting student, Kazuma Asogi, whose victim was the British police inspector Tobias Gregson.
K. Asogi and T. Gregson. One assassin from each country to kill a target residing in the other.
What exactly is the defense suggesting? These two cases of murder, one that took place in Britain and one in Japan, were masterminded by a pair of individuals from each country as a form of assassin exchange. And the telegram the defense has acquired is proof of this international contract to kill.
What?
The telegram was found in your office, Judge Jigoku. In other words, the mastermind in Japan was you.
Judge Jigoku? What's this all about?
And you, Kazuma, you lied. During yesterday's proceedings, you acknowledged that you'd accepted the assassination mission. But the mark wasn't Judge Jigoku at all. It was T. Gregson, Detective Inspector of Scotland Yard, as shown by the name on the killing contract. Very impressive, Ryunosuke. But actually, I didn't lie. The name of the target I was ordered to kill never passed my lips yesterday. It's true, I pointed that out. The idea that Seishiro Jigoku was the mark came entirely from you. Ah! You deliberately avoided saying a name? The defense claims these 4 names indicate some sort of international assassin exchange. I'm sure I speak for all present when I say that the very idea seems utterly absurd. Well, Mr. Jigoku, what do you have to say for yourself? His silence only goes to prove his guilt.
There's another very important point that this new development brings to light. There's now a distinct possibility that the scene of Inspector Gregson's actual murder was in the witness's cabin aboard the SS Grouse.
Judge Jigoku, you have to testify now. To refuse would put you in contempt of court. There's no need for quite such a vicious stare, young man. Very well then. As a parting gift to you all, I'll tell you everything I know. And there's your first mistake. It seems this Japanese gentleman has information that the court must hear about the alleged assassin exchange and the events of the night of the 31st of October. Present your formal testimony now. As you wish, my lord.
We shall see in the next episode. Woo! Perfect timing, right at the hour mark. Well, that was a revolutionary episode. That's the word I'm going to use. Revolutionary. It's not perfectly accurate, but it's there. So that's where we're going to end it. To be honest, kind of bummed that Kazuma is so willing to just kill people for the sake of a father that he barely knew. But, you know, I can sort of understand it. I can sort of understand his motivations. That's the only part that really irks me, though. It's pretty good. The way the case is flowing is pretty good so far. The question now becomes, who was the one who actually killed Gregson, right? Was it Kazuma? Did Kazuma actually hit his mark? Or did he fail? I actually don't remember what Gregson's autopsy showed, so I don't think it was a sword strike at the very least. But yeah, we'll get closer to the bottom of this. We'll get closer to the bottom of this in the next episode when we cross-examine the evil Judge Jigoku. See you guys then.